All right, so this next video is going to be talking about the loft feature primarily. All right, but this little exercise that we're going to do together not only covers loft, but we'll also talk about the shell feature. All right, so lofting essentially is we did this in AutoCAD where I think we designed the bowling pin. All right, this is somewhat similar where we have a rectangular cross section transforming into a circular cross section. Okay, so you can build cross section, cross section, cross section, and then have those kind of blend in between. In this example, they're using something called a guide sketch, okay, on the right side of the part. So basically what that guide sketch is, it's telling SolidWorks that when we blend from cross-section to cross-section to follow a specific guide path, okay? So that's what that is for. Shelling is basically when you see a shell, right? When you crack open a shell, the inside is typically empty or hollowed out. All right, so that's what the shell feature does, is it takes a solid object or a 3D solid model and it empties out the inside. It empties out the guts. Okay, so that's what we're going to attempt to do. All right, so we got to start a brand new part. Okay, if you haven't already, go ahead up to the little paper icon and start a new part. And we're going to have a series of sketches here, okay? So the first sketch is going to be on the top plane. So I'm going to left click top plane and start a new sketch. All right, and this is going to be a rectangle tool, but I'm going to use the center rectangle. And start at the origin, click, drag out, and click to set it. All right, now this particular feature, we're going to smart dimension. We'll smart dimension the side to be 3 inches. And the top is going to be 4 inches. The other interesting feature about this sketch is that we are going to round all 4 corners. So for that, I need to use the fillet tool. So I'm going to click on fillet. And the radius is going to be 1/2 inch, so 0.50. And then entities to fillet, right? So we're looking for what exactly is going to be filleted. The box is blue, so it's looking for input, okay? So I'm going to select corner 1 and click. Corner 2, click. Corner 3, click. Corner 4, click. Now on that last click, I did not move my mouse, okay? And you can see the little mouse icon has a green check on the right click button. Okay, so that means that without moving my mouse, I can immediately right click and confirm all of this. If I move my mouse, then that means I have to use the icons on the top left and top right to actually confirm this. There we go. I right clicked and I confirmed all 4 corners. Okay, I have to go up here to the green check on the upper right or the green check on the left to get out of the sketch tool. Okay, so I'm going to get out of sketch once again by clicking this little exit sketch icon. There we go. And I have my first sketch. Okay. Next, I have to create basically a point of coincidence on the midpoint of this line here. All right, and that's going to be my guide sketch. All right, so my guide sketch, how are we going to do that? So I want to find an element that's going to be perpendicular. Okay, so the front plane will probably be my best bet. Why? Because of the way that I drew my sketch. Okay, my sketch is centered around the origin, so my front plane is exactly where the midpoint of that line should be. Okay, so I'm going to use this as my vertical plane or my perpendicular plane. Okay, so front sketch, left click, start a new sketch. Okay. I'm going to hit spacebar and hit the front view to kind of normal out. And again, this line represents the extent of that rectangle. So I'm going to use the line tool right at the very end here, make it coincident. And I'm going to draw up, zoom out actually. And I'm going to draw straight up and then at an angle. And then I'm going to hit escape. Okay. And I'm going to hit F on the keyboard to fit the whole thing in my view. Okay. So if you don't remember that, that's F on the keyboard for fit. And that will fit the entire drawing as long as you're not in a command. Okay. All right, so next thing is to smart dimension this. So smart dimension tool. And I'm going to say from the bottom to the top point. Okay, actually, I didn't pick my bottom line, so I'm going to make sure to pick the bottom point. And again, because that top line is on an angle, it all depends on the position of my mouse. I want to make sure that this is a vertical dimension, just like that. So I got to move my mouse not on an angle, but vertically. And I'm going to left click to place it and say that this is 12 inches. Use my mouse wheel to kind of scroll back. And then finally, this line is going to be 4.5 inches, so 4.5 inches. Okay, 2 more dimensions on this because again, this is going to be our guideline, right? So with our guideline, we want to make sure that from this line, the angled line, and our straight line, that's going to be our second click. And then I'm going to move my mouse straight up to show the angle in between those 2 lines. I'm going to left click to place my angle dimension and say it's 25 degrees. Okay, left click out an empty space. One final piece, another fillet. Okay, so I'm going to click on the fillet tool. And I'm going to change my fillet parameters to be 3 inches, so 3.0. Enter. And again, my entities to fillet box is empty and it's highlighted blue, means it's looking for something. And that something is going to be this point. Left click. And I'm going to green check up here. And green check again to get rid of the sketch fillet tool because I'm done with it. Okay, so we should have a 4.5 inch line going up. That then turns into a 3 inch radius. And then continues on at a 25 degree angle. And the overall height from the bottom to the top is going to be 12 inches. Okay, so this is my guide sketch. Right? I now need to exit this sketch. Okay, if I take a look at this, this is what we've got going on. I have one sketch on the bottom. I'm going to left click an empty space so they both turn gray. And I have a guide sketch, right? So a cross section, a guide sketch. Now we need to place another sketch on top, all right? But this time it's going to be on an angle, all right? So far we've been dealing with planes that are perpendicular to one another. They're at right angles. Nothing that is at, let's say, a 25-degree angle. Okay? So the way to do that is we have to use the geometry that we've built. Okay? And under the Features tab, all the way to the right, we have Reference or Reference Planes. Okay? So we're going to pick on a plane to create. All right? So select References and Constraints. It's looking for up to 3 different references. Okay? But again, up to 3 references might not necessarily fit all the things that we want to do. Okay? Certain references only require 1 reference plane. Other planes require 2 references. Other planes require 3 references. Okay? So you kind of have to play around and figure out what exactly you need to select, how many references, to get the reference plane that you want. So with this, there's going to be 2 references. My first reference will be the line itself. So that's a click. Okay, and you can see exactly where it places that reference plane. The second reference is going to be the endpoint. Okay, and as soon as you click that endpoint, it places a reference plane perpendicular to that point. Okay, so again, that was the line as one reference, then the endpoint of the line as a second reference. I'm going to green check because I've created my reference plane. And now I need to start a sketch on this reference plane. Easiest way to do it is it's already selected. I can just go to the Sketch tab and select Sketch. Okay. I see my origin. That means I'm in sketch mode. Okay. Next thing is I need to kind of push down the mouse wheel and orbit around so that I can see almost normal 2. If you want a normal 2, you can hit the space bar and select normal 2. This is that little icon with the plane and the arrow. And that will normal to your plane. Now, the sketch that we're going to have to create is a 3-inch diameter circle. Okay? However, that 3-inch diameter circle, I'm going to change this. The quadrant of the circle should end up at the origin. Okay? So not the center of the circle, but the quadrant of the circle should end up at the origin. So I'm going to space bar again and normal 2. So I'm going to draw 2 circles. One is going to be from the origin. And my diameter on this has to be whatever the radius is on the circle. So if it's a 3-inch diameter circle, right, make this 3.0 inches. Left click an empty space. And I'm going to use the circle tool again. And I'm going to left click to start a circle at the left quadrant. There's my click. Drag out to the origin and left click. Okay, I'm going to smart dimension this as a 3-inch circle. Okay, I'm going to cancel that. It says that it's driven. Actually, let me put that back up. Okay, if you get this error message, adding this dimension will make the sketch overdefined or unable to solve. Do you want to add it as a driven dimension instead? Driven dimensions are reference dimensions. That means that they are redundant. Okay, they are extra. They're in addition to, you don't really need them. The reason that this is redundant or a driven dimension is because of how it's using the other geometry to be the same diameter. Okay, so that's why I'm clicking cancel. I'm going to go to trim entities, and I'm going to get rid of that part of the circle sketch, and I'm going to trim over the inside of that sketch. Okay. Then when I apply my 3-inch diameter, it'll take it no problem. Okay, so make sure that this circle sketch is nothing but a circle sketch. Okay, get rid of that scaffolding circle. Right? If I turn it, you should have something like this. Okay, you can exit sketch at the same time. So I've got a rectangle on the bottom, I have a guide path, and I've got another circular sketch. Okay, so that's what I'm working with. I'm going to left click and ensure that nothing is selected. That means all my items are gray. Okay. Now for the loft. Okay, for the lofting, I'm going to go to the Features tab. And underneath the swept boss base icon is lofted boss base. So I'm going to left click to select lofted boss base. And it's looking for profiles by default. Okay, that's why this is all selected or highlighted in blue. Guide curves, I'm going to left click inside there. Guide curves, when I select that, it's looking for any guide curves, which we do have one in this particular instance. So I'm going to left click in the empty box for profiles, and I want to make sure that I sort of click the same spot on both cross sections. So in other words, I want to select the rightmost line, okay, trying to be careful not to pick the guide curve. So I'm going to left click. It recognizes sketch 1. I'm going to try the same thing on the circle on top. Left click. Okay. So that's a loft right there, going from cross section to cross section. And it does its own thing, right? But now we want to control it by using the guide path. So I'm going to left click inside guide curves so that it's looking for a guide curve to select. And I'm going to choose this sketch line. And now all of a sudden, it's still doing its loft, but it's following its guide curve. Okay? And I think the only other set of instructions on this part was to make the start and end conditions normal to profile. Okay, so what that means is start and end constraints right here is not expanded. So I'm going to hit the caret, expand it, and now I have my start constraint and end constraint. So I'm going to change these to normal to profile. And the end constraint is also normal to profile. Okay, so what normal to profile does, basically, it tries to make it as perpendicular as it can from the sketch. Okay, if I turn this off, let's see if you can see it here. It's a little bit difficult to see, but it's kind of tapering in. And if I choose my end constraint normal to profile, it sort of stops tapering at some point and comes in straight. Okay, that's kind of normal to profile. That's what that means. Okay, so we've got our object. I'm going to hit F to fit that, and I'm going to complete my loft by green checking. So there it is. Next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of this plane. I don't want to see it. So I'm just going to left click on plane number 1 in the feature management tree and click on the little eyeball to hide it. Okay, and that hides my plane. Okay, now for the shell feature. The shell feature is also under the Features tab. And it's going to be in this little section right here. Here's shell, left click on shell. So parameters, this depth parameter is basically your wall thickness. Okay, that's your wall thickness. So the wall thickness on this is going to be 0.15 inches thick. Okay. And as I hover over this highlighted blue box, it says faces to remove. Okay, that's basically the face that we're starting to, pull guts out and empty that that vessel or whatever that is. Almost like a jack-o'-lantern where you cut the top of the pumpkin off and then you start pulling everything out. That's the face. Okay, so that's what we want to do. I want to left click on that face right there. Okay, and I'm going to hit the green check. And what that does is that creates a shell. Okay, only on one side. That was reflective on the other side there. And I can go to my section option so you can see exactly that it is shelled. Okay, and we have a 0.15 inch thick wall all the way around, including the bottom. Okay, if we wanted the shell to go all the way through, all right, let me deselect this. So I'm going to click on section view again. That shows me my natural state. All right, I'm going to go back into the feature of the shell. So how do I do that? I go over to my feature management tree, left click on the shell 1 icon, go up to edit feature, the little edit feature icon. All right, that brings me back. Okay, my faces to remove is still highlighted in blue. Okay, if it's not, left click to make sure that it is. I'm going to select the bottom face and then hit the green check. So now I have two faces. Once I hit the green check, then it hollows out the top and the bottom. Okay, so now that's going all the way through. So depending on what side or what face you choose, all right, be careful that you don't go through if you don't want to. I'm going to bring that bottom back, so that means go back to shell 1, edit feature, and I'm going to remove face 2 from my selection. So I'm going to left click on it twice just to make sure I got it, hit delete on the keyboard, and then green check. Okay. And this is the bent coupler. So we used loft, we used shell, we used a guide path, or a guide curve rather, and we also used the reference planes. Okay. One final note on using the loft tool, especially if you don't have a guide curve. All right, the thing you have to watch out for. I'm going to do this one more time on the side. I'm going to start on the top plane. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to create a set of references. Okay, so reference, plane. My first reference, I'm going to use the top plane. So I'm going to go into my feature management tree, and I'm going to select top. And I'm only going to use this first reference, but I'm going to say that the distance between my first reference and an offset plane, I'm going to say is 1 inch. Maybe I'll make it 2 inches. Okay. Then I have a number of planes to create. So these are the instances. So let's do 3 instances. Okay. This is only from one reference. Okay, so I just created 3 additional planes. I'm going to hit the green check. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the top plane. Top plane, new sketch. And I'm going to try to draw this over to the side. So I'm going to use the center rectangle tool and just draw a box on that plane and exit sketch. Then plane number 2, start a new sketch. Let's do a hexagon. And I really can't see what I'm doing. I'm just making this up because I'm just trying to show really quickly. All right, exit sketch. On plane number 3, brand new sketch. Let's go circle. Exit sketch. And plane number 4, new sketch. Let's go back to a small center rectangle. And exit sketch. Okay, no guide curves. This is going to be really funky. Okay, but you can see that all 4 sketches are on different levels, right? 2 inches apart. You can see where they are sideways. This is going to be really bizarre. I probably should have paid more attention, but it's okay. Actually, we can change this a little bit by going into, let's see, edit sketch, and I'll turn it from the top view and just drag kind of center to center and exit the sketch. All right, I'll do the same thing with sketch number 6. Highlight it, go to edit sketch, grab its center point and place it a little bit closer and exit sketch. All I'm doing is moving these sketches, that's all. Sketch number 7, edit sketch, grab that center point, and we'll place it over here. So at least now we have everything more in line. Okay. So the thing I want to make sure to tell you guys is that when we create a loft, lofted boss base just out of profiles, it really matters where you click on your cross section. Okay. I'm going to click on this bottom line, then the bottom line, then the circle, then I'll do the leftmost line. Okay, so what's happening is based on my clicks, you should see a preview, but you should also see these little green balls. Okay, those green balls control twisting. Okay, so if it's twisting on me, I can left click on that green ball and switch where the twist goes, or how the twist actually. Can I get it this side? Here we go. 1, 2, 3 there. Okay, so that's kind of a more normal twisting pattern. Right? So by controlling those green pips, you can control the twist of your loft. Okay, so if you click in the wrong spot, make sure that you change. Whoops, now I'm twisting it in weird ways. So be careful of that. Again, it's making its own cross section. I can go to the constraints and drop down that caret and say my end constraint is normal to profile. Not enough room. Okay, that's why it's not showing me anything. So I'm going to change that back to just default. And I'm going to green check this. And I've got some really interesting sculpture-like thing here. Okay. So just something to be aware of if you're not using guide curves, that you can still control some of the twisting elements depending on the cross sections. All right, that is the Loft tool.